That's beautifully said. Many of the cardinals arriving. Cardinals and clergy. Yep. And Delia, I think about this basilica which Pope Francis visited more than 100 times before and after every foreign trip. And I love the story that on his first day as Pope he snuck out of the Vatican to go there and pray. You know, this is so symbolic because Francis is the Pope of the Popolo. That was a word he loved and had in his heart. People. But it's more than the people. It's the community of people. And so I think this group that is there to send him off is really his heart. You know. It was his politics as well because he was fighting for economic justice for the poor. And it was part of the reason he has these devotions to the icons. He wanted to be a missionary when he first started as a Jesuit. And then he went to Germany to do his doctorate. When we came back to Argentina he was devoted to another version of Mary Our Lady of Knots. You might have heard that with the knots with the KNOTS, and so he had a very simple piety. He encouraged that in people. These devotions. He wasn't up in the intellectual spheres. He was down with the people, and that was shown in his devotions to Mary, to these icons and to the people. In fact, in our interview that we did at the Casa Santa Marta is Mary the Untier of Knots. That saint that he became familiar with in Germany, one that he revered and one that I know the Monsignor has a tie to with the Holy Father. In fact, Pope Francis, when I first met him, and I'll try to pull it out again, gave me a medal. It's exactly this medal of Our Lady of Knots. It's very deep to his heart to untie those knots. Just looking at those people on those steps. The homeless. The immigrants. The LGBT community. One of Pope Francis' quotations I think sums everything up. Whenever we encounter someone in love we learn something new about God. And even as he enters now St. Mary Major, I think Seth said it well. There is joy. That was the first writing of Pope Francis. The joy of the gospel. That's what we're experiencing now. We're hearing from the Sistine Chapel Choir. Absolutely beautiful. Seth Doan is outside St. Mary Major. Seth. Hearing applause as it's happened a few times now. First as he drove by, then as the pallbearers picked up the coffin. As they were moving toward the church, the crowd around me just erupted in applause. There is this joy, but also this reflection, there's this reverence for this moment. Now, of course, yes, we can hear the Sistine Chapel Choir who we heard drive past earlier, along with the Swiss guards. This is just in the windows, there's a big sign that says Gracias Francesco. A huge banner coming from the windows, thank you, Francis. Maybe if you pan to the right, Jack, you can see people leaning out of their windows on the balconies. There's something emotional about it, seeing this outpouring of support and love from someone who's a non-Catholic. I can tell you it's quite powerful to be here at this moment and see how people are living it. As John said earlier, I've lived in Rome for many years. Romans don't turn out for like this much. It is quiet, sad, emotional for so many. And watching this at Welcome to Simplify Science coverage of the funeral of Pope Francis. It is 7 a.m. in the East and 1 p.m. here in Rome. And for the past several hours, we have been witnessing a solemn and final farewell to the Holy Father, a tradition that is centuries old but has been changed a bit by Pope Francis to reflect his humility, a homily delivered by Cardinal Ray, the 91-year-old Dean of Cardinals, praising his papacy, noting that Francis had opened his heart and had welcomed many new people into the Catholic Church. And now you see more than 200 cardinals have made their way from the Vatican and St. Peter's Square to the Basilica of St. Mary Major, which is the largest and oldest church, and it is a place that Pope Francis loved, had visited more than 100 times, and where he will be laid to rest in the earth as he specifically requested, with a very simple tomb. We've seen what that will look like. We've seen, of course, its Ligurian marble, known as the People's Stone. It's not a fancy marble. That's right. The things that Francis could decide, he did, and one of them is right there, the simple wooden coffin. The liturgy he also requested be kept more pastoral, the Mass, rather than as samba. He wanted a funeral Mass, so we see that theme played out. Of course he's being buried in a beautiful church, nonetheless. But for what he could decide, I think he tried to keep it as low-key as possible. And this also very much connects Pope Francis to his roots because the devotion to the Virgin Mary is at the heart of so much Latin American spirituality. I recall vividly when we were with Pope Francis in Brazil, Indiana 2013, he made a trip to the Shrine of Our Lady, which is the Madonna of Brazil. One of the few times you actually see the Pope crying in public to be with the Madonna in that moment. And so to rest forever in the presence of the Madonna, obviously is deeply meaningful to him. The children were a key focus of Pope Francis holding the first World Children's Day and inviting them to Rome, and now we see, of course, they are laying roses before this icon that was so important to Pope Francis. And I think when he visited, he brought back with him 12 refugees, including 6 children. I believe some of those children, it's just beautiful to see this humanity of Pope Francis. Also that stone, Nora, comes from Liguria, and that's a link with his family. His grandparents came from there. And Pope Francis kept the relationship. It's amazing. He loved his family. His father was a simple man. He was an accountant who worked for the railways. His mother, 5 kids, he was the eldest of 5 children. Pope Francis says we were so close-knit it was like 5 fingers on one hand, and he always kept that closeness with his family, which I think is beautiful for us. He chose that stone to keep that link with his family too. I think about, and there are pictures if you search on the internet of Pope Francis right before this icon praying so many times, and when I've been there too, this small chapel just off the